When I was 3 months pregnant, Jiang Jing personally sent me to prison. Before pleading guilty, I asked him one last time if I could refuse to take the fall. You're pregnant, so you can apply for non-custodial sentence. It won't be too hard on you. But Yu is different. She's in poor health. If she's sentenced to prison, she'll die. Think of it as building good karma for the baby. I promise you, I'll marry you when you get out. I asked him. You said I owed her a life. Have I repaid that debt now? Jiang Jing nodded and said he would be grateful to me for the rest of his life. I signed the confession and had an abortion before entering prison. Later, Jiang Jing went mad, demanding to know what right I had to abort his child. I won't let my child have a mother who's been to prison and a father who's cruel. All that's happened, the rights and wrongs of it all. Let's just say I was naive and foolish. From this moment on, Jiang Jing, we're even, we're done. 1. The day I got out of prison, no one came to pick me up. The guard walked me to the gate, looked out at the empty street, and asked me how I planned to leave. I didn't have a cent to my name. The bag in my hand held my only few sets of clothes. Feeling weightless, just like my life, it had no substance at all. Squinting at the brilliant sunshine outside, I smiled and said, "There's always a way. I may not have money, but I have my feet." The prison guard hesitated for a couple of seconds, then reached for his wallet. "No need, I live close by. I can walk home in no time." I declined her offer, picked up my luggage, and started the journey home. I had known all along that no one would come to pick me up upon my release, so before going inside, I made sure to check the map. From the prison to my home, it's a 2-hour and 17-minute walk, not too far, really. In the year and a half I was gone, the city hadn't changed much. The stadium that was under construction before I went to prison was still only half finished. While waiting for the red light, my gaze unconsciously settled on a stroller beside me. The mother noticed me looking and gave me a kind smile. I smiled back and asked her, "How old is your baby?" "He's 1-year-old now." "So adorable," I said, bending down to make a funny face at the baby. The baby lay in the stroller, waving tiny fists and letting out a few soft coos. The light turned green. I straightened up and merged into the bustling crowd. I finally made it home before nightfall. The old security door was covered in dust. I found the spare key in the mailbox, unlocked the door, and went inside. A portrait of the deceased sat on the shoe cabinet. I picked it up, wiped the dust from it with my sleeve, and allowed a faint smile to touch my lips. "Mom, I'm home, too." I took some time to readjust to society. With a criminal record from my time in prison, finding a job was tough. To get by, I took a job sorting packages at a delivery hub. After just a week, I collapsed in the warehouse and was taken to the hospital by a coworker. I never properly recovered after the abortion back then. It really took a toll on my health, and I just don't have the stamina to push myself like I used to. I had no choice but to quit my job and sign up as a food delivery driver. My plan is to save up for a couple of years before deciding whether to start a small business. These days, a bachelor's degree isn't worth much, and a bachelor's degree with a prison record, that's worth even less. Being a delivery driver isn't easy work, but it's still better than being a warehouse picker. It's more flexible, and honestly, it suits me just fine. The earnings that weekend were pretty good. Right before I was about to clock out, I got a big order with a high delivery fee, but the distance was a bit far. I checked the battery on my e-scooter, hesitated for a moment, but couldn't bring myself to pass up the money, so I took it. The destination was a club famous for being pricey. When I arrived, I called the customer, and he told me to bring it straight to the private room. The takeout box was huge. Struggling to carry it, I found the room and knocked. "Hello, your delivery is here. Please sign for it." "Just leave it there." The familiar voice made my eyelashes tremble. I silently followed the instruction and placed the box in the corner. The private room was bustling with a dozen or so men and women. The corner was piled high with boxes from various luxury brands. In the center of the table sat a 3-tiered cake, exquisite and opulent. I tried to leave right after delivering the food, but was suddenly called back. "Hey, delivery guy, wait a moment." My footsteps froze. "It's my birthday today. Please, have a piece of cake. Thank you for delivering our order so late at night." I looked up. Perhaps because most of my face was hidden by the helmet, no one at the scene recognized me. The woman standing before me had a delicate, captivating face. With a warm smile, she reached out and offered me a piece of cake. Her name was Chin Wn. She used to be my friend. A sharp pain welled up from the depths of my heart, piercing so deep into my very bones and blood that it nearly robbed me of my voice. I reached out and took it, my voice hoarse as I said thank you, as I turned to leave. I failed to notice the figure that had appeared behind me at some point. It was too late to dodge. I could only watch helplessly as the cake smashed into their chest, staining their shirt. Jiang Jing looked down at his sticky chest, then back at me, saying nothing. The private room had fallen silent at some point. Someone called out with gleeful malice, "That shirt's probably a goner. 100,000 yuan shirt, think you can afford to pay for it? It's alright, don't be scared. It was an accident, we won't make you pay for it. You can go." Qin Wn walked over, soothing me in a gentle voice while pulling out a tissue to dab at Jiang Jing's shirt. Jiang Jing stood motionless, his gaze fixed intently on me. The next second, he suddenly reached out and yanked off my helmet. 3. No one's hair looks good after wearing a helmet for too long. The private room fell completely silent, even the music had stopped. I smoothed down my messy hair and reached out to Jiang Jing. "Had your fill of staring. Can I have my helmet back?" Liang Qiu, you're out already. That was quick. Weren't you sentenced to 3 years? Finally, someone in the private room spoke up. I ignored them, my gaze fixed calmly on Jiang Jing. "Qiu," Qin Wn said, seeing this, and quickly grabbed my wrist. "Why didn't you contact me after you got out? I have so much I want to say to you." I ignored her. My only goal was to get my helmet back from Jiang Jing, but Jiang Jing wouldn't let go. I had to put in a bit of effort, but I finally wrestled back what was mine. "If you don't mind, I'd appreciate a 5-star rating." A faint smile tugged at the corner of my mouth as I put my helmet back on and walked away. "Liang Qiu, don't you have anything to say?" Jiang Jing's words stopped me in my tracks. I turned my head, my gaze settling on Qin Wn, and said in a flat tone, "Happy birthday, Qin Wn." On the way home, just as I expected, my little e-bike ran out of juice. I had no choice but to get off and push it along slowly. In the still of the deep night, a few luxury cars roared past me. I simply kept my eyes on the road, carefully navigating around the potholes and obstacles, pushing my cart with single-minded focus. It was already the small hours by the time I got home. I cooked myself a simple bowl of plain noodles. By the dim, yellowish glow of the streetlight outside the window, I ate in silence, the shifting light and shadow playing across the room. Full but not yet sleepy, I took out my mother's photograph, sat by the window, and began talking to myself. "Mom, are you doing okay in the other world? Did you receive all the joss paper I burned for you? Have you met my child? Is he cute? Please remember to find him a perfect new mother for his next life. Next time he's reborn, I hope he won't be so unlucky as to end up in my womb again. Mom, I miss you." For that night, I had a rare dream, a dream of the past. It had been a long time since I last dreamed. My 1.5 years in prison had completely worn down the last of the sharp edges left in my soul. I rarely think about the past. Life in prison is very regimented, waking up, working, eating, and sleeping, all at fixed times. The beginning was the hardest. I'd sit on my bed every day, eyes wide open, counting the seconds, just waiting for dawn. Eventually, I got used to it, and after that, I stopped thinking about anything at all. It's too painful to live with too much clarity. It's better to live in a state of numbness. It's fine not to feel happiness, as long as the sorrow isn't too deep. It's just that the self in my dreams is so vividly colorful, with a smile full of life. That's why I feel a little sad upon waking. Wondering how I became the person I am now, the woman in the mirror had a pair of lifeless eyes. I looked at my reflection from side to side, trying to force a more cheerful smile. The knock came before I even had a chance to wipe the smile off my face. It wasn't until I saw Jiang Jing standing outside that my smile froze completely. Seeing that I wasn't responding, Jiang Jing had to speak up first. "Aren't you going to invite me in?" "No, thanks," I asked him, my hand on the doorknob. "What is it?" He handed me a business card. "Call this person. They'll arrange a job for you. I appreciate the offer, but that won't be necessary." He let out a short laugh, seemingly scornful of my stubborn pride. "Liang Qiu, don't push your luck." I just stared at him, saying nothing. Jiang Jing avoided my gaze. "Even though you terminated the pregnancy without discussing it with me, the promise I made still stands." I thought for a long time before finally remembering the promise he had indeed made to me before I went to prison. He said he would marry me once I got out, A smile finally broke across my face. Jiang Jing visibly relaxed as well and added, "Don't be upset anymore. Wanwan also said she's very grateful to you. Let's find a chance for all of us to." "Jiang Jing, that was just your one-sided promise. It doesn't count." I cut him off, watching the expression on his face slowly fade away. I said softly, "I'm not so pathetic as to marry a man who doesn't love me and has always looked down on me. What I've wanted, from the very beginning, is to be done with you both for good, even if it means sacrificing my own future." 5. Jiang Jing left. Before leaving, he said, "Liang Qiu, don't you dare regret this." The deeper meaning of his words quickly dawned on me. During the lunch rush, I came out after a delivery to find my scooter, which I'd parked by the curb, was gone, along with the scooter. Over a dozen undelivered food orders had also vanished. I stood there on the side of the road, phone in hand, staring blankly at the street. People were coming and going all around, everyone in a hurry, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I had no choice but to call each customer one by one, compensate them for their losses, and then report it to the police. The police said the surveillance cameras in that area were down, and while they'd do their best to find the car, they couldn't guarantee it. I walked out of the police station, looked at the string of complaints and negative reviews on my phone, took a deep breath, and gave a weak, helpless smile. There's still some money left in my account, enough to buy another electric scooter. But what if the second one gets stolen too? I crouched by the roadside, lost in thought for a long time, until a little girl with a backpack timidly tapped my shoulder and asked, "Are you okay, miss?" I smiled at her and said, "I'm just a little tired, so I'm taking a rest here." She thought for a moment, then fished a piece of candy from her pocket and handed it to me. "Here, have a candy, sis." "Thank you." That piece of milk candy gave me a little boost of energy. As soon as I got home, I started working on my resume. Reputable companies wouldn't hire me, but there are always smaller firms with less stringent requirements. But my criminal record is right there, in every interview. I can never escape the inevitable follow-up question from HR. "Have you served time in prison?" I nodded and said yes. "Was the reason for your incarceration a hit and run?" "Yes, but you don't have a driver's license." "That's correct." The HR representative fell silent, then politely handed my resume back to me, saying they needed more time to consider. I remembered again how Jiang Jing told me that Qin Wn was too frail to endure the hardship of prison. It never occurred to him that I didn't have a driver's license, and if convicted, I would face a harsher sentence for driving without one. But that's to be expected. I can't very well ask someone who's never given me a second thought to see things from my perspective. All my job applications went unanswered. To avoid burning through my savings, I started applying for jobs like waiting tables. But what I never expected was that no one would even hire me to be a waiter. As I stepped out of the last restaurant, the sky opened up and it began to pour. I stood in the restaurant doorway, watching the rain drip from the eaves, before slowly walking out into the downpour. The rain wasn't that heavy, at least not enough to blur my vision. But in the end, my vision blurred. It was a peculiar kind of grievance, the feeling of being wronged, yet having no one to turn to and share that very grievance with. 6. Jiang Jing stood waiting for me under my apartment building. Holding an umbrella, I spotted him from a distance, about 10 meters away. I stopped in my tracks, unwilling to go any further. He noticed me, started walking towards me, then halted just 3 steps away. "Have you come to your senses?" he asked me. I looked at him earnestly. "Jiang Jing, you said you'd be grateful to me for a lifetime." "So, gratitude, it's not supposed to be like this," I said, "so you can't treat me this way." My mind must have been addled by the rain, so I couldn't see how utterly feeble and hollow my words were. Of course he could do this to me. I had nothing, no family background to rival his, no wealth to support me, not even any family or friends. He could freely humiliate me, slander me, and pin one false accusation after another on me. I just never imagined he despised me so much. That he wouldn't even leave me a way out. Finally, step by step, he came to stand before me. That umbrella shielded me from the torrential rain. It blotted out all my light. In the pitch darkness, Jiang Jing reached out, caressed my cheek, and told me this was the price for settling our score. "Then what do you want me to do?" I murmured, asking him. "You don't want my love, and you don't want us to be even, so my only choice is to die. Is that it?" 7. I had a warm, comforting dream. In the dream, I was nestled in my mother's arms. She patted my back gently and whispered soothingly, telling me not to cry. I whimpered softly, clinging to her, and said, "Mom, it hurts so much," her heart aching for me. She asked where it hurt. "My head hurts, my hands hurt, my feet hurt," I said, my voice thick with self-pity. "Everything hurts, but the ache in my chest is the worst. Mom, living is so hard. Can I come to be with you?" She just held me gently, without saying a word, and in that moment, I knew she didn't want me either. Who would ever want me? No one would. And just like that, the dream was over. I lay there with my eyes open, staring blankly at the familiar ceiling above me. Once the days had passed, I slowly disentangled myself from Jiang Jing's embrace. He started, instinctively pulling me closer, only to release his hold in a daze when his eyes met mine. I managed to crawl to the foot of the bed and curl into a ball. The room was dark. I had no idea what time it was. But Jiang Jing's presence beside me made me feel profoundly unsafe, so I asked him, "Can you leave?" Perhaps softened by the night, Jiang Jing seemed less aloof than before. He just let out a soft sigh and asked me what I really wanted. I thought blankly, what did I want? I just wanted to live a decent life. But he wouldn't give me that chance, so I turned the question back on him. "Jiang Jing, what about you? What is it that you really want?" He sat on the edge of the bed, his back to the moonlight, watching me quietly, but I just kept my eyes downcast, staring at the simple, old-fashioned pattern on the bedsheet, and said in a low voice, "What more do you want from me? I have nothing left to give you. Don't you want to marry me anymore, Jiang Jing?" "I never once thought about marrying you," I smiled soundlessly. How could I ever have dared to hope for that? "Liang Qiu, do you love me?" I don't understand why Jiang Jing would ask that. I thought that between him and me, from the very beginning until now, this was the least important thing. But I answered him anyway. "Jiang Jing, I did love you, but not because you were rich or handsome. It was simply because I thought you were a good person. The day my mom died in the car accident, I was crying my heart out at the hospital. So many people walked past me, but you were the only one who offered me a handkerchief." 8. Everyone thought that Jiang Jing and I first met at the freshman mixer, but that's not how it really happened. I first saw him back in my senior year of high school. It was the darkest day of my life. In the middle of class, my homeroom teacher suddenly called me out and told me something had happened to my mom. I rushed to the hospital in a panic, only to find my mother's cold, solitary body. It was a hit and run. The driver fled the scene. My mom never even made it to the hospital. She was gone. Without a single word of goodbye, we never got to say our final goodbyes. I was young when my father passed, so the pain didn't fully register. But when my mother died, I was on the cusp of adulthood. That was the first time I truly understood how sudden life's partings can be, that fate doesn't grant everyone a proper farewell. I hid in the stairwell and cried until I was nearly unconscious. But scenes like this are all too common in a hospital. Every wall, every brick in this place has borne witness to countless tears. No one dares to stop, for their own lives are hard enough. They simply don't have the courage left to shoulder another's suffering. "Please stop crying. Your sobbing is giving me a terrible headache." Someone sat down beside me and handed me a handkerchief. I was choked with sobs, nearly drained of all strength. Sweat and tears mingled, leaving me drenched as if I'd just been pulled from the water. He took out a cigarette in front of me and asked if I minded. I just kept crying, giving him no answer. He clicked his tongue in annoyance, the cigarette dangling unlit from his lips. My words hadn't affected him in the slightest. His tone remained cold from start to finish. "Grow up. Every meeting is the beginning of a parting. No matter how close two people are, one of them always leaves first. Everyone can get along just fine without anyone else. What's the big deal?" He found my crying too noisy, but he stayed with me for a long time. In moments like that, I just needed someone by my side. It's as if, in the vast sea of people, even if I had to be alone from then on, it wouldn't feel so lonely. In the end, someone else called him away. Someone pushed open the stairwell door and called his name. "Jiang Jing. Time to go home." Jiang Jing stood up, brushed the dust off his clothes, and left without looking back. He didn't say goodbye to me. We were just passing ships in the night, so a farewell didn't seem necessary, but I remembered his name. It wasn't until the freshman mixer that my new roommate, Chin Wn, walked over with him on her arm, beaming as she introduced him to me. "Chocho, this is my boyfriend, Jiang Jing." The complete lack of recognition in his eyes told me he didn't remember me at all, but that was okay. I would always remember his kindness. I repaid that debt of gratitude tenfold, through my friendship with Chin Wan. And so, Chin Wan and I became friends, though sometimes I regret it, wishing I had never met Jiang Jing in the first place. He offered me a faint warmth, like a flickering, dying spark on a frigid winter's night, yet I paid for it with all the happiness of the rest of my life. 9. Perhaps some things are truly fated. My mother's death was caused by a hit-and-run driver. The charge that sent me to prison was also hit-and-run. I suppose this is the universe's way of telling me that the warmth I never deserved in the first place was always meant to be given back. Jiang Jing, do you have any idea what was going through my mind as I sat in that courtroom, listening to the judge deliver the verdict? You make me feel like I was the driver who hit and killed my own mother, and then fled the scene. Enough. Stop talking. Jiang Jing shot up from his seat. His towering figure loomed in the darkness like a terrifying monster, baring its ferocious fangs as if to devour me whole. I curled my limbs tightly, laughing as I looked at him. Jiang Jing, why are you so angry? Is it because I aborted your child? Do you know how I did it? In the dead of night, after everyone was asleep, I rammed my stomach against the corner of the single bed. It was excruciating, but incredibly effective. It only took 2 impacts, and he was gone. I was bleeding so much, but I held on until dawn before finally letting the police take me to the hospital. I'll never be able to have children again, so even though I've been to prison, I'm poor, and I'm a failure. At least I don't have to worry about a child of my own blood coming into this world to suffer with me. Jiang Jing closed in on me, grabbed my ankle, and yanked me toward him with brutal force. I screamed and fought. But he was impossibly strong. He just crushed me against his chest in a vice-like grip, refusing to let go no matter how hard I scratched, bit, or hit him. In the end, I'm just exhausted. The world is spinning, and I feel like I'm dying. Jiang Jing, do you know why I'm saying all this? Because I'm a pathetic creature that nobody wants. I can't win against you. All I can do is tear open my own wounds, over and over. To remind myself that the price of loving you is too high, a price I can't afford to pay. Let me go, or let me die. Pick one. Let's just end this cleanly. No more of this back and forth. Alright, but Jiang Jing just held me tightly, over and over. He commanded in my ear. Enough, stop talking. His voice grew low and hoarse, finally choked up. 10. When I came to again, I found myself in the hospital. My limbs were still weak and limp, and my head felt heavy as if filled with concrete. I met Jiang Jing's gaze. He was sitting by the bed, staring at me intently. I looked back at him calmly. After a long moment, I turned over, giving him my back. Jiang Jing gently lifted his hand and freed the 4-line I had been lying on. Do you really want to settle all scores between us? I won't say a word, then promise me one last thing. Hearing this, I just wearily closed my eyes. I'd rather not. His word has never been worth anything. He was the one who said that if I went to prison in Qinwan's place, would be square. Liang Qiu, do you hate me now? Why do you keep asking me what I really feel for you? Is that so important? He shot back. Isn't it? Yeah, it's not important. You're right, it really isn't important. Jiang Jing toyed with the lighter in his hand. I'm planning a wedding, and I'm still missing a bride. I opened my eyes. Marry me, and I'll set you free. So it's true that people can laugh in utter fury. Jiang Jing, have you lost your mind? So many people want to marry you. Why on earth would you choose me? Have you forgotten how you cursed me for shamelessly climbing into your bed just to get my foot in your family's door? You never explicitly stated you were unwilling to marry me. So all my wedding preparations were made with you in mind, Jiang Jing said. A lot of money was spent. You can't afford to pay it back. I could only find the whole situation absurd. Liang Qiu, you're not even afraid of death, so why are you afraid to take this final gamble with me? Jiang Jing stood up, walked to the window, and turned his head to look at me deeply. What if you win? I could even send you abroad. Your English is good, so living and communicating there wouldn't be a problem. They won't know about your past, that you've been in prison. You could have a completely fresh start. I didn't believe him for a second. Yet I couldn't suppress the flicker of hope rising in my chest. You'd really let me go, really. But you clearly despise me. Jiang Jing put the unlit cigarette back between his lips. Yeah, I can't stand you, but I said I'd marry you, and I'm not one to leave things half-finished. 11. I've never been able to figure Jiang Jing out, and honestly, that's to be expected. Even after sharing the most intimate of acts, we never really got to know each other. We never held hands. Never shared a real conversation. Throughout the long years of university, we weren't even friends. He was my roommate's boyfriend, a handsome, wealthy heir. Knowing my place, I always kept a respectful distance. The closest we ever got was in a haunted house. Mistaking me for Chin Wn, he laughed and pulled my head against his chest as I screamed in terror, whispering, "Don't be afraid." When he realized his mistake, we simply parted ways without a word, pretending nothing had ever happened. Chin Wn often asks me what I think of Jiang Jing. I always tell her that Jiang Jing is a great person and a perfect match for her. They both come from distinguished families, possess striking looks, and have temperaments that are either steady or passionate. By any measure, they are a match made in heaven. A perfect pair. Really, you honestly think he and I are a good match? Chin Wn asked, resting her chin in her hand. Chocho, don't you think you and Jiang Jing would make a great couple too? Wanwan, don't joke about things like that. I was always at ease because I had never once considered the possibility of anything happening between Jiang Jing and me. Loving someone doesn't mean you have to be with them. In fact, loving someone doesn't even require an ending. Jiang Jing is my benefactor, and Chin Wan is my friend. Their happiness is my happiness. But later, I realized it was all just wishful thinking on my part. Who do I think I am? I'm not worthy of being friends with these young masters and ladies. At the graduation party, Chin Wan handed me a glass of wine with a beaming smile. She said that over the 4 years of university, she was grateful for my constant patience with her little moods, and so she wanted to toast me. I took it, took a small sip, and my face immediately contorted from the bitter taste of the liquor. Chin Wan started to laugh, but before she could even tease me about it, she was dragged away by other friends. Jiang Jing happened to pass by and, seeing me holding a glass, casually asked, "Do you drink?" I shook my head with a smile and replied, "Not really, I rarely do." "Then give it to me." I was just about to say I'd already had a sip from that glass when Jiang Jing had already drunk half of it. Seeing this, I had no choice but to swallow the words that were on the tip of my tongue. Even after drinking, Jiang Jing didn't leave and chatted with me a bit more. I was wondering why he was suddenly talking to me, given that we weren't close. When I heard him say he wasn't feeling well and wanted to go back to his room to rest, my first instinct was to contact Chin Wan. "No need, I'm just a bit dizzy," Jiang Jing said, frowning as he undid the top button of his shirt. "It's a rare opportunity today. Let her enjoy herself. Don't disturb her. So, shall I walk you back to your room?" I had only asked out of politeness. I was sure Jiang Jing would refuse, but he just tilted his head in thought for a couple of seconds before nodding. "I'd appreciate that." I helped Jiang Jing back to his room, and then, I never left. The drink was spiked. I only took a small sip, but Jiang Jing drank most of it. After a night of passion, I was greeted the next morning by full body aches and the sting of Chin Wan's hateful slap. 12. I was plagued by self-doubt for a very long time. I always considered myself a person of decent morals, incapable of taking what belongs to another. I couldn't, for the life of me, understand why I didn't refuse Jiang Jing when I was supposedly in my right mind and fully conscious. Later, I realized why. I wasn't in my right mind at all. I had only taken a tiny sip of wine, but it was enough to rob me of my senses, and that fact only made the whole situation worse. Getting drunk doesn't necessarily lead to losing control, but with ulterior motives. I made Jiang Jing drink the strong liquor laced with an aphrodisiac. My intentions towards him were as plain as day to everyone. I became a shameless hussy who would stop at nothing to get into Jiang Jing's bed. Both Chin Wan and Jiang Jing were pitiful victims I used and hurt. The wine glass was handed to me by Chin Wan, but she is so kind and naive, and has always been utterly devoted to me. How could she possibly be capable of delivering me to her own boyfriend's bed? Jiang Jing took the drink willingly, but he was just being kind, trying to shield his girlfriend's roommate. How could he have anticipated I would stoop so low? They are people of noble character and integrity, the very embodiment of all that is good, so the shameless, despicable one had to be me. It could only be me. Chin Wan couldn't bear the reality of being betrayed by both her boyfriend and her closest friend. She attempted suicide by slitting her wrists, was discovered in the act, and was rushed to the hospital. So everyone says I owe Chin Wan a life. Chin WN was in a bad place, drinking heavily, and ended up driving drunk and killing someone. Since I'm the one who owes her, it's only right that I take the fall, and to make matters worse, I was pregnant. I truly deserve to die for that. I am a sinner, and the child in my womb will be born bearing my guilt. But how merciful Jiang Jing is. He promised me that if I atone for my sins, he will marry me and acknowledge this child as his own. I desperately tried to scream, but it was as if I was surrounded by a vacuum, cutting off any chance for my cries for help to be heard. Was I wrong? Must I atone? What was my mistake? And for what sin must I seek redemption? Is my child also at fault? Must he inherit my sins? I refuse to accept this. I will bear all the consequences, but I cannot let my child be dragged down by me. He deserves to be born into a family filled with love, and to have a future full of promise. The night I signed the confession, I rested my hand on my lower abdomen for a long, long time. A sharp, searing pain radiated from my core, spreading through every limb and fiber of my being. I had a miscarriage once, and the agony of it was no less than that of childbirth. As the police officer carried me to the hospital, I even managed to let out a laugh. Perhaps it's fate. I, Liang Qiu, am destined to be without family. It's only fitting that I live out my days alone. 13. I agreed to Jiang Jing's proposal of marriage. He seems to truly value this wedding. Everything is of the finest quality. According to the wedding dress designer, work on my dragon and phoenix gown began 2 years ago. The hand embroidery is incredibly time-consuming, and the entire team had to work overtime for nearly 3 months just to barely finish it. A full year ahead of the original schedule. I was dazed for a few seconds. 2 years ago. I remember, that mistake with Jiang Jing was also 2 years ago. They're already making arrangements this early. A strange thought crossed my mind, but I didn't dwell on it. Jiang Jing initially asked for my opinion, but once he realized I wasn't invested in any of it, he stopped consulting me. He chose the wedding invitation design, selected the types of wedding suites, and decided on the hotel specifications. Honestly, I wanted to say it's just a sham wedding. He really didn't need to go to such lengths, but this wedding turned out to be far more extravagant than I ever imagined. I don't understand Jiang Jing, so I can't fathom why he insisted on having this wedding, nor why the bride absolutely had to be me. But it doesn't matter, I don't need to understand him. I just hope he'll keep his promise. I want my freedom. On the wedding day, Jiang Jing came to fetch me bright and early, dressed in a custom-tailored suit. He stood out as exceptionally handsome amidst the large entourage of family, friends, and photographers following behind him. I had no family or friends of my own, so the bridal pickup ceremony had to be simplified. Yet, honoring tradition, Jiang Jing carried me all the way, from going downstairs to getting into the wedding car, without letting my feet touch the ground once. I didn't see any of the people who had spoken ill of me before. I suppose Jiang Jing didn't want the atmosphere of his wedding to be ruined. Looking at the lily of the valley bouquet in my hands, I allowed a faint smile to touch my lips. I looked up and found Jiang Jing staring at me intently. So happy, he asked me, is it because you can't wait to be free? Yes. I nodded with a smile. I really can't wait. Outside the window, the scenery rushed by in a blur, reminding me of the phone call I received last night. It was from Chin Wan. Her laugh was harsh and shrill as she said she couldn't believe Jiang Jing was still willing to marry a barren woman. You know, Liang Qiu, I really despise you. From the very first moment I saw you, I knew you were exactly the kind of person I hate the most. You put on this act of being aloof and indifferent, but deep down, you know exactly how twisted you really are. You've always had your eye on Jiang Jing, haven't you? You should be thanking me for that drink. It gave you the perfect excuse. I've always known it was Chin Wan who drugged the drink. If Jiang Jing hadn't suddenly stepped in and snatched my glass, who knows which man I would have woken up next to the next morning, or which ones. Chin Wan, in all honesty, I've never done a single thing to wrong you. You stole Jiang Jing from me, and you still have the nerve to say you've done nothing wrong. If it weren't for that drink you gave me, I would never have had anything to do with Jiang Jing in my entire life. But Jiang Jing loves you. Chin Wan was hysterical. How could he fall for you? What do you have that I don't? Why would he choose you over me? I held the phone, completely silent. Have you never even considered it? Don't tell me you still think Jiang Jing has always hated you. Ha, he doesn't hate you at all, he's madly in love with you. He went against everyone's wishes, stubbornly insisting on having a wedding with you. If he didn't love you, what would he possibly gain from it? If drugging Jiang Jing was all it took to make him sleep with any woman, why do you think I never tried it before? He's been trained against that since he was a child. His body has a resistance. Common aphrodisiacs are completely useless on him. I hung up the phone immediately. 14. The wedding ceremony was held on an open-air lawn. The venue was decorated very warmly, with beautiful flowers and balloons everywhere. As I saw Jiang Jing standing on the stage waiting for me, for a fleeting moment, I felt as if we had truly been in love. The host held the microphone and asked him, "Mr. Jiang Jing, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, do you take Ms. Liang Qiu to be your wife, to love and to cherish, till death do you part?" Jiang Jing looked at me and answered firmly, "I do, Ms. Liang Qiu, do you take?" I held the microphone, staring fixedly at Jiang Jing, and opened my mouth to answer, "I don't want to." The audience below erupted in an instant uproar. The smile vanished completely from Jiang Jing's face as he stared at me with a darkened expression. I took off the crown on my head and repeated once more, "Jiang Jing, I will not marry you. I will not marry the man who raped me, who had me thrown in prison, who once left me with no way to survive." I lifted my skirt, drew the small knife strapped to my thigh, and pressed it against my own neck. Liang Qiu, a flicker of panic finally showed on Jiang Jing's face. His arm trembled as he tried to stop me. "Stay away from me." I backed away warily. In the chaos, the knife grazed Jiang Jing's arm before I pressed it back against my own chest. "I will not marry you. I will not be with you. Jiang Jing, make your choice now. Do you want me dead, or will you let me go?" The crowd surged forward from below the stage. Yet none dared to actually approach us. Jiang Jing didn't clutch his wounded arm. He just stared at me in silence. Since he remained silent, I drove the blade in a little deeper. A faint stain of blood seeped through the wedding dress. Jiang Jing's lips trembled, and finally, with eyes shut tight, he growled, "Get out." I let out a bleak, hollow laugh. How pathetic. When Jiang Jing handed me his handkerchief, I never imagined he could love me. When he held me in his arms and told me not to be afraid, it never crossed my mind that he loved me. When he clung to me, relentlessly demanding my body again and again, it never crossed my mind that he loved me. When he insisted I become his bride, it never crossed my mind that he loved me. When Qin Wn said Jiang Jing loved me, I didn't believe a single word of it. But at this very moment, when I realized that my safety was truly the only weakness that could threaten Jiang Jing, I finally believed that he actually had feelings for me. How absurd it is. I've endured so much suffering, yet all of it, it turns out, stemmed from his love. How am I supposed to accept this? 15. That wedding ended in utter chaos. Jiang Jing was rushed to the hospital, and I gained the freedom I had always dreamed of. If this was a battle, the pity is that there were no winners. I bought another small headstone for my mother's grave. It bore no photograph and no name. I submitted my resume again, and this time, without Jiang Jing standing in my way. I successfully landed a job at a company and started a new chapter in my life. As night fell, I left the office and treated myself to a box of strawberries before heading home. The faint scent of grass lingered in the air, signaling that the bitter winter was finally coming to an end. Spring was just around the corner. The end. Jiang Jing, an extra chapter. 1. When Jiang Jing was 8 years old, his mother passed away and was taken to the crematorium. All around him, adults were arguing fiercely over the inheritance, over money and interests. He stood alone in the corner, his face cold and expressionless, not uttering a single word. "Want a candy?" A little girl had appeared beside him at some point. She had beautiful braids and was looking up at him with wide, innocent eyes. A single white rabbit milk candy lay quietly in her open palm. Jiang Jing didn't know her, so he had no intention of engaging. "My dad is in there too," the little girl said, pointing at the massive furnace used for cremation. "Mom says when people die, they go to another world." "No, they don't," Jiang Jing said flatly. The little girl didn't understand. When someone's dead, they're just gone. There's no other world. You don't have a father anymore, so Daddy won't ever come back to see me, right?" The little girl pouted, her lips trembling with sadness. Jiang Jing felt utterly despicable, seeing the sorrow on his face. He felt the weight on his own heart instantly lighten. It was as if the grief had been transferred from him to another through some invisible means. "Who is that in the furnace?" the little girl asked again. Jiang Jing kept his eyes open and let out a soft sigh. It's my mother. The little girl stared at Jiang Jing, her eyes wide. After a long moment, she stood close to Jiang Jing and gently took his hand in hers. Don't be sad, she said. Maybe my dad and your mom can be friends. Even if they're gone, they won't be lonely. Adults hurried past all around them, their faces etched with worry, anger, or grief. No one noticed the two children in the corner. Jiang Jing ate the milk candy the little girl had pressed into his mouth. He didn't know how much time had passed when, finally, his fingers stirred and he closed his hand around hers. For a moment, their young, beating hearts resonated as one, two. The year Jiang Jing turned 18. His grandfather fell suddenly ill and was rushed to the hospital. It wasn't serious, but the younger relatives crowded around the hospital bed, fussing over him with endless concern. Annoyed, Jiang Jing slipped away to the stairwell for a smoke. That's when he saw the girl crying her eyes out. Someone in her family must have passed away, he thought idly. He found the scene oddly fascinating and watched in silence for a long time, until, in that face contorted with tears, he glimpsed something familiar. Oh, it's her. How strange. She's like a perfect, scaled-up version of her younger self, completely unchanged, even more remarkable. He still remembered her, despite having met her only once. The cigarette dangled from his lips, yet he forgot to light it. Jiang Jing watched for who knows how long before finally walking over and sitting down beside her. For the first time in his life, he clumsily tried to offer comfort. It didn't seem to do much good, and in the end, he didn't even get a thank you. Jiang Jing was thinking to himself. Back when we were kids, she was always grinning like a happy fool. Now that she's grown up, how did she become so emotionally intense? 3. The freshman mixer was their third time meeting. This time, Jiang Jing finally learned her name, Liang Qiu, Artemisia, a type of mugwort. To put it simply, it's just a weed. It's not important or rare, but it's incredibly tenacious. Jiang Jing thought to himself, the name really fits the person. They exchanged contact information, but never actually messaged each other. Liang Qiu had a good sense of boundaries and knew better than to get too close to her roommate's boyfriend, but Jiang Jing had, at some point, developed a habit. Every night before going to sleep, he would open Liang Qiu's social media feed. She didn't post very often, and her updates were mostly about little anecdotes from her daily life. Day after day, he repeated this behavior, and surprisingly, never grew tired of it. Qin Wn asked him what he thought of Liang Qiu. Jiang Jing's reply was, she's alright. Well then, do you know any decent guys around you that you could introduce to Qiu? Jiang Jing's response at the time was, it's not suitable. What's not suitable about it? Our family backgrounds aren't suitable. Oh, come on, it's just dating. No one's talking about marriage and kids. But Jiang Jing still refused. He had no interest in playing matchmaker. You're so stubborn, turning it down so flatly. I almost thought you had a thing for Qiu. Jiang Jing said nothing, his gaze just drifting lightly past Qin Wn. Qin Wn immediately gave an awkward smile. Sorry, that just slipped out. I spoke out of turn. Jiang Jing didn't have any particular feelings for Qin Wan. She was a family introduction. If they got along well enough, marriage wasn't out of the question. In families like theirs, even when it came to romance, the first consideration was always finding someone of equal social standing. So even when Jiang Jing realized he had certain special feelings for Liang Qiu, he never considered acting on them. That was, until the incident in the escape room. It was clear Liang Qiu was genuinely averse to anything involving ghosts and spirits, and was quite timid, but having been dragged there by Qin Wan, she had no choice but to grit her teeth and start the game. At one point, I was so scared I froze completely. Jiang Jing couldn't take it anymore. After yet another ghost suddenly jumped out to scare them, he finally reached out and pulled Liang Qiu over. The moment her head bumped against his chest, Jiang Jing's breath hitched. It felt like his heart skipped a beat. He and Liang Qiu had never been physically intimate, so he had never known just how far a person's longing for another could go. So, this was how far it could go. Every cell in his body was screaming, demanding he hold her tight and never let go. To crush her very bones and blood and fuse them with his own, to make them one and the same. I'm Liang Qiu, not Wanwan. Did you mistake me for someone else? An awkward, timid female voice broke the silence. Jiang Jing snapped out of his daze and, mustering every ounce of his self-control, released his grip. His heart dropped. in some hidden corner, Pandora's box had been quietly opened. For Jiang Jing did not like Liang Qiu. Jiang Jing detested Liang Qiu. He despised the feeling of his emotions being so easily manipulated by another person, and resented how his thoughts were constantly, involuntarily drawn to someone else. He was supposed to be steady, composed, and self-possessed. So when he discovered that the drink Liang Qiu had given him had been spiked, his first reaction was rage, pure, unadulterated rage. How much more of my soul do you need to possess? Is that what you want? To see me completely lose control? Do you think you can handle it? As it turned out, Liang Qiu could not. She cried and screamed, trying to flee, only for him to seize her ankle and mercilessly drag her back. Yet, beneath that overwhelming fury, lay a hidden truth. A certain void within him had finally been perfectly filled. He adopted the posture of a victim, desperately extracting guilt and attention from Liang Qiu. He wanted to crush her into the dust, only to then play the savior and rescue her. That way, for the rest of her life, she would have no choice but to depend on him, forever unable to leave. Just fantasizing about such a scenario was enough to bring Jiang Jing to climax. As he passed by the bridal shop, Jiang Jing suddenly found he couldn't take another step. He could hear his own heart pounding, leaping, and cheering with joy. They were going to get married. It seemed some things needed to be prepared starting right now. 5. Yet, in the most resolute manner, Liang Qiu terminated their unborn child, and she refused to see anyone. That had been Jiang Jing's greatest bargaining chip. Liang Qiu seemed to be dying. Her vitality was fading away, like a handful of fine sand. The tighter he grasped, the faster it slipped through his fingers. It shouldn't be this way. How could it come to this? The price of having her was losing her. Jiang Jing began to ask himself, what was it that he truly wanted? A long, long time had passed, so long that they had become strangers. He saw Liang Qiu emerge from the flower shop, cradling a bouquet of dewy, vibrant jasmine blossoms, a soft smile gracing her face. He finally understood. All he had ever wanted was for her to smile. That was all. 6. Jiang Jing did not like Liang Qiu. Jiang Jing detested Liang Qiu. Jiang Jing loved Liang Qiu. Yet, Jiang Jing did not understand what love truly was, nor how to love. He only knows how to hurt others, so he deserves it. Story 2. My billionaire husband has suffered from a stomach problem for years. It's only with the traditional Chinese medicine I boil for him every day that he can get some relief. 9 years into our marriage, my husband forgot to accompany me to my prenatal checkup for the 5th time. Enduring the abdominal pain that was a sign of a possible miscarriage, I sent him a divorce agreement. His young girlfriend shed tears and said, "It's all my fault. If you hadn't accompanied me, sister wouldn't be angry." My husband soothed her in a soft voice, but all he said to me was, "Let's get a divorce then. Don't regret it." It was only later that my husband, who was suffering from a stomachache, accidentally came across the prescription for the traditional Chinese medicine that treated his stomach problem. Why isn't the Chinese medicine being boiled? When Bruce pushed the door open and got home, he was holding his aching stomach with his hand. In the past, whether he came home or not, I would always spend at least 2 hours boiling the prescription for nourishing the stomach. I ignored him and continued applying a facial mask while scrolling through my phone. He frowned, sent me the link to a luxury bag store, and then transferred 100,000 yuan to me. On the chat interface, the last record of him typing to talk to me was still from 7 months ago. After that, he would only occasionally buy an expensive gift. Gradually, he even got too lazy to choose gifts. He would just send links and transfer money, letting me make the choice myself. I was too lazy to reply to him. I switched to the game Candy Crush and casually said to him, "Remember to find time to get a divorce. Bruce is very busy, and in terms of time, I'm willing to cooperate with him. Stop being silly, boil the medicine, and I'll drink it up properly today." Traditional Chinese medicine is bitter. In order to get Bruce to finish the medicine, I have to think of all kinds of ways every time. Slowly, following my words and drinking the medicine properly became his way of coaxing me. After he finished speaking, he threw his phone on the sofa and went into the bathroom to wash up. The phone screen was still on, and the screensaver was a selfie of his young assistant, Grace. There were also 8 pink words: "Uncle, be good and remember to take your medicine." Grace's family and Bruce's family have been friends for generations. When we had our wedding banquet, she was still a little girl. dressed as a flower girl, she said sweetly, "May you have a long and happy marriage." In the blink of an eye, she grew up. Not long after she returned from studying abroad, she became the personal assistant of her Bruce. I'm not actually annoyed by Grace's affection for Bruce. It takes two to tango. If he knew how to keep his distance, there wouldn't be a young girlfriend that everyone in the city knows about. Bruce came out wrapped in a bath towel, clicked on his phone. And when he saw the screensaver, he smiled with a look of doting. His stomach ached again, his straight eyebrows furrowed, and when he looked up at me, there was a hint of disgust in his expression. Maybe he was blaming me for not boiling the medicine. Just using a screensaver to remind him to remember to take his medicine can get his doting and tenderness. 9 years into our marriage, I didn't forget to spend 2 hours boiling medicine for him even when I was in confinement. But our relationship as husband and wife has gradually become cold, and his eyes are full of impatience and disgust. I pretended not to see his look, stretched exaggeratedly, and turned my head away. I didn't want him to see the slightly moist corners of my eyes. "Grace will pick up our daughter tomorrow." He was replying to a message and said to me without looking up, "The daughter is mine." But Grace always likes to act like the mistress of the house. She often goes to pick up our daughter without telling anyone. Once, I couldn't get through to my daughter on the phone, and I was so worried that I called the police. After that, Bruce got angry with me, thinking that I was making a big deal out of nothing. I shook my head, trying to dispel some unpleasant memories. I smiled and said, "Okay, help me thank this young lady." Bruce seemed to be stung. After a moment of silence, he flew into a rage. "Ruby, don't always challenge my bottom line." I curled up a bit to make myself lie more comfortably. "By the way, don't worry that a pregnant woman can't get a divorce. I had a miscarriage." Bruce didn't accompany me to any of the 5 prenatal checkups, but for the 4th one, he did send me halfway, only to receive a call from Grace. Her puppy was going to be sterilized, and she was feeling anxious. Of course, sterilizing a puppy is not as important as my prenatal checkup, but Grace is more important than me. Enduring the abdominal pain, I took a taxi by the roadside to the hospital. The doctor said there was a possibility of a miscarriage, and I was also in danger. Recently, Bruce has been busy accompanying Grace to meet her elders, so naturally, he couldn't remember the date of my 5th prenatal checkup. Well, this time, for my own safety, I chose to have an induced abortion. In the living room, Bruce clenched his fists and was silent for a long time after hearing the news. He knew that I had gone to all the prenatal checkups alone. He had no right to blame me for anything, but his words were full of sarcasm. "Well, if you can't be a good wife, how can you be a good mother?" I smiled and was about to go back to my room to sleep, leaving only one sentence: "You're right. I can't be a good mother, so I deserve to have a miscarriage." Bruce and I met when we were young. The beginning of our love story wasn't anything spectacular. He said he took a liking to me at first sight. At that time, I also thought he was good-looking and felt shy. When we were in university, under the pressure of his family, he went to study in the Americas. I stayed in China to study. My life was plain, between the dormitory, the classroom, and the library. Because of his relationship with me, a girl from a poor family, his family cut off his allowance. He didn't give in. He squeezed out the cost of a round-trip ticket to come back to China once every 2 months from his scholarship, and that's how he developed his stomach problem. He liked the southern rice noodles I cooked. I felt sorry for his stomach problem and didn't put chili peppers in the noodles for him, but he would secretly drink the spicy soup left over from my meal. I found a prescription for traditional Chinese medicine to treat his stomach problem and boiled the medicine for him. He smiled and licked the dirt off my face, both touched. After graduating from university, he came back to China. That year, my mother passed away in the hospital due to giving birth at an advanced age. My father, who had been longing for a son all his life, got drunk in the hospital. He pointed at my mother's body and cursed loudly, and then punched and kicked me. Bruce fought with my father and beat him up while being surrounded by my uncles. My father ended up with a lame leg. And Bruce had a cut on his back. I applied medicine to him with tears in my eyes. He turned his head and kissed me. He said that for the sake of just a child, he would never put his woman in danger. He said that if possible, he hoped I wouldn't have to give birth. He hoped I would always be healthy. That night, I gave myself to him because I wanted to have a child for him. When we were young, we said a lot of sweet words to each other. Now, he even forgot to accompany me to the prenatal checkups. which are essential for ensuring my basic health. A week after moving out of the villa, I went to the hospital for a follow-up check. I asked questions very carefully, fearing that I might leave behind any lingering health problems. The doctor prescribed some medicine to nourish blood and qi, and then thanked me, Ruby. The prescription for traditional Chinese medicine to treat stomach problems that you provided to the hospital last time has a very good effect. I knew it had a good effect, Bruce. Being a wealthy young master requires very careful conditioning. Over the years, the prescription I refined through his long illness couldn't be bad. When I went to pick up the medicine, I ran into Grace. She was full of insincere words, advising me to take care of my body. She also said that Bruce accompanied her to the hospital to see the dentist today. I ignored her. I actually thought that if this girl jumped into the Yellow River, people all over the country could have a sip of Longjing tea, which could be considered a blessing. Why are you here? Surprisingly, it was Bruce who spoke. He looked extremely unhappy. I was a bit curious. When does he show such an angry expression when Grace is around? When will you stop making trouble and move back? Bruce has always thought it's my fault. His words were like an order. I covered the medical bill in my hand and didn't want to pay attention to him. But he snatched the bill and his face turned even uglier. Is today your prenatal checkup, or a follow-up check? Why didn't you tell me, Ruby? Talk to me. How long are you going to keep making trouble? He still thought that my moving out of the villa was just me making trouble with him, that I was reluctant to leave him, and that it was a way to attract his attention. I couldn't stand his tone and politely gestured for him to step aside. Bruce, this is a hospital. Please don't make a scene. He lowered his voice and asked Grace, I asked you to check the time of Ruby's follow-up check. Why didn't you remind me? Grace's face was full of surprise and panic. I forgot too. I shook my head. I really didn't want to watch any more of their drama. Holding the medicine, I walked outside. My wrist suddenly tightened. Bruce grabbed my hand very tightly. I didn't remember today. But when will you come back? Bruce, if you have time to ask me questions. You also have time to accompany Miss Chu to see the doctor. I wonder when you'll have time to find a moment to get a divorce with me. Grace suddenly pointed at a notice board in the hospital, trying to interrupt the tug-of-war between Bruce and me. Bruce, look. This hospital has a prescription for traditional Chinese medicine to regulate the stomach. She spoke in a sweet voice, pretending to be caring and cute. Aren't you always having a stomachache recently, Bruce? It says here that this is the latest high-quality prescription. I took the opportunity to break free from Bruce and walked out quickly. When I turned the corner and left, through the glass, I saw Grace shaking Bruce vigorously, and Bruce was standing in front of that notice board, staring at it without moving. Although I've been a housewife for many years, my working ability hasn't deteriorated. A new job, a new residence, and a new life. Everything is developing in a positive direction. On the day I urged my lawyer to prepare for a divorce lawsuit, Bruce called me. I hung up. He called again. I hung up. He called once more. I blocked his number and sent a message. Talk to my lawyer. After a while, my lawyer told me that Bruce's lawyer informed us to meet at a private kitchen restaurant. When I arrived, I didn't see either of the lawyers. Instead, I found that all of Bruce's family members were there. My daughter looked at me timidly and was sitting next to Grace. My heart ached. But I was also a bit annoyed. Bruce, where are the lawyers? Bruce stood up and then sat down again. He just said indifferently, this is a family dinner. We're not talking about other things. A family dinner. Why is the assistant here for a family dinner? I was annoyed for a moment. Bruce looked at me and said softly, our daughter is here too. Regarding my daughter, I had already made up my mind. It's indeed pitiful for a child to grow up in a single-parent family. But in a family where the parents are unhappy, how can there be a child who grows up healthily? But in front of my daughter, I held back. My eyes turned red, and I stroked my daughter's face. We hadn't seen each other for a long time. In the eyes of my 7-year-old daughter, there was happiness and a hint of fear. Grace hugged my daughter and looked at me provocatively. Susan, tell sister what the piano teacher has taught you recently. As soon as she said this, everyone looked at Grace with great approval. As Bruce's personal assistant, Grace meddles in all the affairs related to my daughter. I know that in the eyes of his family, a young lady like Grace, who also comes from a prestigious family, is worthy of taking care of their child. His mother is even worse. She resents that I once provoked Bruce to turn against the family. She has never thought that I have any upbringing and keeps making things difficult for me, in the past. For the sake of my daughter and Bruce, I endured all the grievances. Grace let go of my daughter, took out a paper bag, and handed it to Bruce. She pretended to be cute in a soft voice. Before at the hospital, Bruce stared at the notice board of the prescription for traditional Chinese medicine to treat stomach problems for a long time. I made several special trips and bought a lot of the medicine back. Bruce glanced at me, holding the paper bag of traditional Chinese medicine in his hand. He was stunned for a moment. Naturally, his family gave Grace a new round of praise. I squatted down and talked softly with my daughter. I don't care about her studies or piano playing. I only care about whether she is happy and healthy. My daughter clenched her right fist tightly, and her left index finger gently scratched my arm. Her eyes were full of caution. I suddenly became angry. I knew that this was a sign that the child was emotionally unstable and seeking dependence. Grace is in charge of my daughter's study, daily life, and extracurricular activities. What kind of scare has this 7-year-old child endured to be so cautious even in front of her mother? Bruce, I'll be in charge of our daughter's education from now on. With tears in my eyes, I held my daughter in my arms, and my daughter also hugged my arm tightly. Ruby, what kind of upbringing do you have? You're not fit to teach my family's child. Before Bruce could say anything, his mother said sharply. Bruce's face looked ugly. He stood up and stared into my eyes. What are you trying to do now? Grace had a look of contempt on her face and didn't miss the opportunity to speak in a sarcastic way. Sister Ruby, if you think I'm not doing it right, you can just. But Bruce suddenly turned around and scolded her. Shut up. He was obviously angry, and there were all sorts of indescribable emotions in his eyes when he looked at me. Ruby, what kind of jealousy are you getting worked up about this time? When will you be a mother who's not crazy and a wife who's not unreasonable? I didn't want to argue with him at all, but today, the anger that I had buried for years was completely ignited. I looked at him, recalling all the hopes in the past and all the disappointments and despair now. My chest was filled with emotions. Do you want to see what a truly crazy mother is like? What a truly unreasonable wife is like? Bruce squeezed his hand tightly, and the bag of traditional Chinese medicine burst. All the medicinal herbs that I was very familiar with spilled out. They scattered all over the table. Don't be like this. You're scaring me. Let's talk properly about whatever. Grace grabbed Bruce's sleeve, looking pitiful. Who wouldn't feel sorry for her? But I wouldn't. I picked up the scattered traditional Chinese medicine on the table and poked the dried herbal branches straight at Grace's face. Don't you know how to shut up? Do you want me to teach you? Grace was so scared by me that she hid behind Bruce and didn't dare to say anything more. This, of course, aroused Bruce's desire to protect her. That's enough, Ruby. Put the things down. Why are you threatening her? At least she puts effort into my stomach problem. What about you? If you had cared more about me and our family, Grace wouldn't have to be so busy. Bruce's words stabbed me deeply. I sneered. I didn't care enough about you. But did you care about me? If you had cared about me, how could you not recognize these medicinal herbs? They were all refined by me day and night when you had a stomach problem. This is the prescription you've been drinking every day. Does Grace need to go to the hospital to get it? His family was surprised to see me suddenly become assertive. His mother seemed to have caught me in the act. She accused me of various issues in front of Bruce, saying that after hiding my true nature for so many years, I had finally revealed my true colors. Since things had come to this, I didn't really mind taking on such a bad reputation. Anyway, there was no need for me to keep enduring grievances and compromising. The only thing I couldn't let go of was my daughter. I squatted down and asked my daughter if she wanted to come with me. My daughter looked at Grace timidly. Grace immediately showed a triumphant expression and held out her hands to my daughter. Susan, come to sister. You still have a piano class today. How about sister takes you to practice the piano? She spoke in a soft voice and was praised by everyone. But to everyone's surprise, my daughter suddenly let out a sharp scream, turned around, and hugged my leg tightly, refusing to let go no matter what. I don't want to go to the piano class. I want to go with Mom. My eyes welled up with tears. After all, she was my daughter. Even though she was usually controlled by his family and we rarely got to meet, she still regarded me as her last haven. I patted my daughter's head to soothe her and questioned Grace about what she had done to my daughter. Of course, Grace wouldn't tell the truth. She was full of excuses and denials. So I turned to Bruce and asked him, You said I don't care enough about our daughter, but what about you? Do you know why Susan has such a strong reaction to the piano class? Bruce hadn't said a word since just now. Now, when I asked him, he came back to his senses and said, "It's normal for a child to want to avoid hardship. Don't make a big deal out of this here." I picked up my daughter and placed the divorce agreement that I had prepared long ago on the table. Then consider it me making a big deal out of it. I will never let my daughter stay in any environment that might harm her healthy growth. That day, I took my daughter away firmly. When we got home, I saw the scars on my daughter's body that were hidden by her clothes. After I soothed her several times, she told me that whenever she made even the slightest mistake, Grace would hit her, always in places where it wouldn't be easily noticed. Grace was too eager to prove to his family that she could raise an excellent descendant of their family, so she wouldn't allow Susan to make any mistakes. I held my daughter in my arms and felt deeply regretful. If I had been tougher before, perhaps this wouldn't have happened. The next day, I took a leave for my daughter. I called my friend Diana, whom I hadn't been in touch with for a while, and we took my daughter to an amusement park. His family never allowed her to come to such places, thinking that it would make her lose her ambition, but I believed that this was the kind of childhood a child should have. Diana and I watched from below as my daughter rode the carousel. Seeing her happy, I finally felt at ease, but apparently, Diana still couldn't quite come to terms with the changes that had happened to me overnight. "Are you really going to divorce Bruce? You two were so in love before. How did it come to this?" Diana was a classmate of ours in university. She knew everything that had happened back then. It was precisely because she knew that she couldn't understand how Bruce had become like this. People change, it's just that I've been stuck in the same place, and it's time for me to look forward. He's a total jerk. It's okay. I'll introduce you to someone better, sis. Diana patted her chest confidently. My phone rang again and again. It was Bruce, and I hung up on him every time. In the end, Bruce called Diana's phone. Diana, not knowing anything, answered the call and then awkwardly handed the phone to me. How did he know I was with Diana? I took the phone, and Bruce's voice came through. "Susan should be at school today, not wasting her time in an amusement park like you. See, what did I tell you? Are you following me? I'm just worried that you can't take good care of Susan. Judging by this, you're really not fit to be a mother. Send Susan back and give her to Grace." I just felt like I had heard the biggest joke. So making a child happy means not taking good care of her, and beating her all over means taking good care of her. I hung up on Bruce, picked up my own phone, and sent Bruce the photos of the scars on my daughter's body. Bruce didn't reply. I was too lazy to pay attention to him and just went on with my new life as usual. My new job was going smoothly, and it also gave me a lot more time to go out and have fun with Diana. We went out with my daughter, and she became much more cheerful. With my daughter's nod, I sent her back to school. Now I had even more time for myself. A new junior colleague joined the company. He was young and obedient, and he would call me sister every day while following me around. He had just graduated from university. Every time he talked to me, he would blush, and even my daughter would tease him. I heard that he majored in music in university, so he had a lot in common with Susan. Only when he talked about music would he change his usual shy demeanor. Diana said that he must have a crush on me and wanted to be Susan's stepfather. I waved my hand, thinking it was impossible. How old was he? My daughter was already 8 years old. How could I delay his life? Moreover, that guy Bruce, why hasn't he signed the divorce agreement yet? I complained to Diana. The days without having to take care of a man were so great. I was really getting impatient. Bruce dragged it out for 2 whole weeks before coming to me with Grace. I was about to pick up Susan from school when Bruce blocked me at the door and dragged Grace to apologize to me. Grace is too young to know how to take care of a child. She did a lot of extreme things. I brought her here to apologize to you. I didn't know how Bruce had reprimanded Grace. It was the first time I saw such an unwilling expression on this woman's face. She apologized to me reluctantly, begging for my forgiveness. She kept repeating the same few words, and I was so tired of hearing them. "Are you done? If you're done, you can leave. I still need to pick up my daughter." Just as I was about to leave, Bruce grabbed my hand. "Ruby," he held me, but he didn't say anything for a long time. I hadn't seen him being so hesitant for many years. When he and I first got together, he would always try to figure out my mood like this. He would guess whether I was happy or sad that day and whether he had done anything to make me unhappy. Later, Bruce became the decisive and forceful Bruce, and his attitude towards me was no different from that towards his subordinates. It was only me who had to guess his thoughts. Now he was acting like this again. Who was he trying to show it to? I shook off Bruce's hand and walked straight towards the garage. Grace was very dissatisfied with my attitude. She ran up and blocked my way. "Uncle has something to say to you. Can't you see that? How can you treat him like this?" "Shut up," Bruce interrupted Grace's chattering. "This has nothing to do with you." Grace had obviously never been treated so harshly by Bruce before. I guessed that she hadn't had a good time recently, because of the matter with my daughter. Bruce had scolded her a lot, but she must have never expected that Bruce would scold her for my sake. After all, even I couldn't figure out what Bruce was up to. "Uncle, I just can't stand the way she treats you. She doesn't even know what you've been through these days. This is a matter between husband and wife. It has nothing to do with you." The words husband and wife stung Grace. She took 2 steps back, bit her lip, and left crying. Just as I was about to ask Bruce if he didn't need to chase after her, my phone rang. It was my lovely junior colleague, Edward, on the phone. He anxiously told me that Susan was missing. Edward got off work early today. Thinking of giving my daughter a gift, he came to the school and waited for her. But he didn't expect that even after all the students had left, she still hadn't come out. Since he came early and knew that I definitely hadn't arrived yet, he went to the classroom to ask the teacher and learned that my daughter had already left. I rushed to the school. Edward was standing next to the homeroom teacher, stamping his feet in anxiety. "Is there any news about Susan?" The homeroom teacher shook her head. "And we had to search separately." Bruce also came with me. When he heard that Susan was missing, his first reaction was to blame me. But I grabbed his collar and said to him in a fierce tone that he had never seen before, "If anything happens to Susan, the first person I won't forgive is you." I knew I was lashing out at him, but over the years, the number of times I had seen my daughter could be counted on one hand. If I could have seen her more often and known her better, perhaps I could have guessed where my daughter might go when she went missing. Bruce followed me the whole time and asked his people to help search for my daughter all over the city. But this made me even more afraid. I was afraid that his family would find my daughter before me, and if that happened, I would surely lose my daughter forever. But fortunately, the first person to find Susan was Edward. In the school's abandoned warehouse, she had been locked up by a group of naughty children. My daughter had been knocking on the door for help, but because the place was remote, no one came to rescue her for a long time. Fortunately, Edward heard her. This wasn't the first time such a thing had happened. Usually, those children would let my daughter out before school was over to prevent being discovered. But they forgot today. I asked my daughter if she had told Bruce about it. My daughter told me that Bruce was too busy and didn't have time to care about such things. And Grace would just tell her not to cause trouble for her. If it wasn't for me taking care of her recently, which made her develop the mentality to seek help, I don't know how long she would have been locked up here. The occurrence of such a thing was definitely related to the teacher's usual negligence in management. I demanded that the school deal with those so-called naughty children. Bruce was dissatisfied with my high-profile approach. He thought it wasn't something to be proud of and wanted to solve it privately, but I refused. I said to Bruce, "It's because you couldn't protect her that this happened. You don't deserve to make demands on me." After saying that, I took my daughter away. After leaving, I took my daughter to the hospital. The long-term school bullying had caused her serious psychological trauma. I gave the hospital's diagnosis to my lawyer and filed a lawsuit in court. On the grounds that Bruce didn't have the ability to take good care of our daughter, I obtained the custody of my daughter and also got the divorce certificate from Bruce. The 9-year-long love affair between Bruce and me came to an end at this moment. When I got the divorce certificate, I found that I didn't feel anything. It turned out that my feelings for him had long been worn away over the years. Edward was waiting for me outside the courthouse, holding a bouquet of flowers. Ready to give them to me, a bouquet of sunflowers, representing hope and new beginnings. Now it would be too fake to pretend that I couldn't see his feelings. He was very good to me and also paid a lot of attention to my daughter, but I still didn't have the intention of accepting him. From any perspective, I didn't plan to start a new relationship. I took Edward's flowers and joked, "Are you giving me these for Susan to crack the seeds?" Although Edward was shy, he was very smart. He understood my rejection and didn't say anything. He just said that he had another gift for my daughter and invited her to go to a musical together during the summer vacation. When he said this, He nervously licked his lips. I knew that he actually wanted to invite me, but I shook my head and refused. Edward, on behalf of my daughter, I promised my daughter that I would take her on a trip during the summer vacation to heal the scars in her heart. And also to heal my soul that had withered for Bruce for 9 years. I finally got my freedom, and I was going to have a great time. But I overlooked the fact that Bruce wasn't an easy person to deal with. The powerful Bruce, who could cover the sky with one hand, managed to get my daughter's medical records, pointing at the doctor's diagnosis on it. On the grounds that the doctor recommended giving my daughter the care of a warm family, he came to me to ask for a remarriage. I cursed the doctor 100 times in my heart for lacking medical ethics. How could he so casually disclose the patient's privacy to others? But since the other party was my daughter's father, it seemed to be in line with the regulations. I didn't know what had gotten into Bruce. He didn't want his young and beautiful assistant but came to me, a woman past her prime, to ask for forgiveness. But Bruce stood at the door, looking extremely tired, as if the recent days had made him lose his glory all of a sudden. He was no longer the superior CEO in front of me. Instead, he was like the Bruce when we first got together, shy and cute. Just like Edward, he was the Bruce who would skip meals and save money for 2 months just to come and see me. He was the Bruce who would put his heart into pleasing me and worry about whether I was angry or not. Ruby, I know it's my fault. I shouldn't have been so busy with work and ignored you. Can you give me another chance? Bruce, people should look forward. My decision to divorce you wasn't a momentary impulse. Our relationship has long been worn out. Your discomfort now is just because you haven't gotten used to it yet, and I have long been used to such days under your indifference. Bruce, what you need isn't a reunion but to get used to the new situation. I looked at Bruce and felt that he now resembled myself when I first realized that he didn't love me anymore. He still thought we could get back together. Probably because he thought he still had feelings for me and was unwilling to accept the fact that he had already changed his heart. Susan is in this state now. She can't grow up without a father. Give me a chance. It's also a chance for Susan. Okay, I really can't lose you. But she has never received your fatherly love. For her, there's no difference between having a father and not having one, is there? As for whether you can lose me, what does that have to do with me? But our daughter emerged from the room. She looked at Bruce timidly, hugged my leg, and showed an aggressive stance towards Bruce. She was protecting me. You see, both Susan and I don't welcome you. You can leave now. I closed the door, but I knew Bruce wouldn't leave easily. Every time I went out these days, I could see Bruce waiting downstairs, but he just watched from a distance and didn't take a single step forward, because I said he wasn't welcome here. It's quite funny. In the past, he always turned a deaf ear to whatever I said. Now he obeys every word I say. According to Diana, the entire Jean Corporation is in chaos now, all because Bruce hasn't been going to work and has been coming to my place every day. His mother is almost going crazy. In their mouths, I, the single mother, have become the femme fatale who causes all the trouble. Grace comes to persuade Bruce to leave every day, but now Bruce doesn't even glance at her. Grace had no other choice but to come to the company and block me, asking me how long I intended to torture Bruce. I never intended to torture him. Isn't all of this his own choice? Just like me in the past, his attitude towards me was so clear-cut, but I was willing to stay by his side, longing for him to still love me. My attitude towards him is also very clear now. If he insists on putting on a bitter drama, he's just bringing trouble on himself. After hearing this, Grace started to go crazy. She cursed at me like a madwoman and tried to pounce on me and hit me. I called the security guards to restrain her. I was too lazy to listen to her accusations, which were nothing more than things like hating why I had a place in Bruce's heart and why she couldn't compare to me. It has nothing to do with me. Belated affection is always cheaper than grass. Grace was dragged out, and finally, I had some peace and quiet. It started to overcast outside, and it seemed like it was going to rain. When I got home, it was raining the hardest. Bruce stood at the door like a drowned rat and asked me if I could take him in. I told him to dream on. I walked past Bruce and closed the door directly. Diana was waiting for me at home. We had made an appointment to have hot pot at home tonight. It was just perfect with the rain outside. Bruce is outside. Aren't you going to do anything about it? Why should I care about him? Will he share the meat with you and me? Is this little bit of meat even enough for you to eat alone? I asked Diana, and Diana burst into laughter, saying that I did the right thing and that's exactly how I should treat Bruce. Actually, I don't particularly want to take revenge on him, I'm just too lazy to care about him. Men are not as important as hot pot. Are they? But I didn't expect that since I didn't let Bruce in, he actually stood outside in the rain all night. When I saw Diana off in the morning, I tripped over the person lying at the door. Bruce was lying at the door, frowning, his eyes tightly closed, and his hand clutching his stomach hard. I didn't know if he was dead or not. I bent down and touched his forehead. It was burning hot. Diana and I dragged him into the house together. Then I asked Diana to take our daughter out to play because I didn't want the sick person to infect our daughter. Bruce woke up while I was out buying medicine. When I got home, he was dragging his sick body to clean up the mess Diana and I left behind last night. Are you planning to die in my house and make me take responsibility? In the face of my words, Bruce was at a loss. He was still holding a plate with congealed red oil in his hand, not knowing whether to put it down or not. I just wanted to share some of the burden with you. He used to say the same thing. At that time, he was abroad and I was in China. In order to catch up with him, I considered applying to a foreign school and stayed up late studying every day. He also wanted to do some housework and told me in the bathroom full of soap bubbles that he wanted to share some of the burden for me. 9 years have passed, and his housework skills haven't improved at all. I don't need it. The best thing you can do for me is to leave my house right away. I have nowhere else to go now. Can you please take me in? Look, the CEO of Jean Corporation is acting like a stray dog in front of me. You have nowhere to go. Mom is very dissatisfied with me. She said that if I can't solve my marriage problem, I shouldn't go home again. Only Bruce would think that the marriage problem his mother mentioned includes me, even at this point. That person would never accept me as a daughter-in-law, but I still said to Bruce, fine, then don't go back. Bruce's eyes lit up because of this. He quickly cleaned up everything on the table, wiped his hands, and asked me what I wanted to eat. I threw the medicine to him and told him to take care of himself first. Bruce stayed at my place for 3 days. During these 3 days, he did everything a father and a husband should do, and even more than that. If he had done this before we got divorced, I'm afraid I would have woken up laughing in my dreams. But now, looking at his flattery, I don't feel anything in my heart. However, seeing our daughter so happy, I still asked her if she still wanted a father, but our daughter hugged me and told me that she didn't care. She knew what her father had done before, and she only hoped that I could be happy. I kissed our daughter and promised her that even if it was just me, I would still give her the best. On the 5th day, I stopped Bruce, who was about to go out, and gave him a sum of money. Bruce was confused. I told him that this was the payment for the housework he had done at my place in the past 2 days. Why? I let you stay because it was the reward for me taking care of you when you were sick. I was busy in the following days and let you stay for 2 more days. This is your salary. Is there a problem? Bruce didn't reply for a long time. Our daughter had already pushed out a suitcase that was even bigger than her and was ready to leave. Edward and Diana were waiting for me at the door. I opened the door and said to Bruce, who was standing there dumbfounded, hurry up and leave, I'm going to lock the door. Where are you going? Edward picked up our daughter, pushed my suitcase away, and said, to the airport. Right, Susan. Bruce panicked. He ran up and pointed at Edward, asking me, is it because of him? Is it because of him that you don't want to get back together with me? You're crazy. I waved away Bruce's hand and got into the car-hailing vehicle that I had already ordered. Edward put my suitcase in the trunk for me. Bruce chased after us, grabbed the car door, and tried to pull me out. Edward grabbed his wrist and pushed him away. Ruby, are you really leaving? I ignored him and directly told the driver to drive. I could see Bruce following us in his car behind. Diana asked me if I really wasn't touched at all. When Bruce pushed the door open and got home, he was holding his aching stomach with his hand. At the airport, Bruce followed me all the way. Every time he tried to come forward, Edward blocked him behind. After I went through the security check, looking at Bruce outside the security check, finally,